So this is an interesting story, the story of the transfiguration of Jesus. And rather than focusing on Moses and Elijah and some of the pretty spectacular things that happen in this story, and Jesus becomes dazzling white before them and they're overwhelmed, I think the most important piece of this story is simply this. Listen up. God says to Peter, John, and James, listen up. This is my son. This is the chosen one. Listen to him. And so as we look at this story and as we think of the mountaintop experience that the disciples have, the most important words in this story are, this is my son, the chosen one. Listen to him. So as I was looking at the text this week and thought of a lot of different sermons that I preached about the story of the Transfiguration, most of which I didn't care for very much, I thought instead of going there, maybe it would be good for us to ask the question, what does it mean to listen to Jesus? What does it mean to listen to Jesus? One of the things you know about our congregation, and if you don't, let me tell you, that this is a congregation where anyone is welcome to come to the table of Holy Communion. It doesn't matter where you've been, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter where you think you might be headed. This congregation, this community is a place where all are welcome. We say it over and over again. This is not a Lutheran table. This is the table of Jesus. You don't have to be baptized. You don't have to ever have been in church before. To listen to Jesus in this place is to be welcome to this table. All are welcome at God's table. I know of well-schooled theologians and pastors who disagree with that. That's okay, they're not here. And if they were, they would be welcome too. What does it mean to listen to Jesus? What does it mean to listen to the one God proclaims, the chosen one, my beloved son? What does it mean to listen to Jesus? Don't know if you are a person who has a sense of God speaking to you today in your life. Do you have a sense of God speaking and saying something to you? Do you think maybe you're out of your mind? Or do you think that maybe you are hearing through the voice of Jesus in the scriptures the voice of God? What does it mean to hear God's voice? Anne Lamott is a wonderful writer. She is creative. She is a person of deep faith. She is funny. She is memorable. And as you think about listening to Jesus and hearing the voice of God, I would offer these words to you from Anne Lamott as words of caution. You can safely assume you've created God in your own image when it turns out that God hates all the same people you do. You with me? Taking notes. I'm impressed. You can safely assume you've created God in your own image when it turns out that God hates all the same people you do. I'm sure you've never done that before, but I have. And it's easy to say, well, this is what God is saying to me, and since these are my enemies, they must be God's enemies, and that's not God at all. I don't know who or what it is, but that is not God at all. To listen to Jesus is not to hear that message. So what does it mean to listen to Jesus? What is God trying to get at on the mountain of the Transfiguration? What does it mean to listen to Jesus? Well, this past week was the General Conference of the United Methodist Church. And at this General Conference, the folks who were there wrestled with some questions that folks in the Lutheran community have also been wrestling with for a long time. The issues very specifically had to do with the ordination of gay and lesbian folk and the possibility of marriage for gay and lesbian folk and the broader LGBT community. Tough conversations. Is it possible to have a tent that's big enough to have people who might see this differently? Is it possible to listen to Jesus in the midst of this. This is not an issue of salvation. This is not about whether God gives God's life in Jesus. This is about what it might mean to have a bigger tent, a more inclusive community. Decision addressed the same-sex marriage and gay clergy issue. And depending upon what side you found yourself, it was a day of tremendous grief and sadness, or perhaps an affirmation of a particular interpretation of the Bible. Does this mean that gay people are not welcome in the United Methodist Church? I don't know. What do you think? Are gay and lesbian people welcome in our church, really? While this decision doesn't exactly lay out a welcome mat, gay people are welcome to join. You know, people come to the church, come as you are. We accept you as you are. Whether you are gay or straight, married or single, whether you come from a tradition where gay people can be ordained, come as you are, but not really. Not really. Too frequently we get to this place of believing this idea that all are welcome. Somebody said to me the other day, Pastor Brad, we are not an all are welcome place. You know what I said to him? Then help make us one. He wanted me to do away with this banner that I give so much energy to, all are welcome. And I said, then help us become an all are welcome church. What does it mean to listen to Jesus? What does it mean to listen to the chosen one? What does it mean to listen to the Son of God? One of my favorite stories from the Gospel of John is the story of the raising of Lazarus from the dead. You might know about this story, and if you don't, let me just give you a thumbnail sketch. Jesus wasn't there in time to save Lazarus, and a lot of his friends are very upset. He got there, and it was 4 days after Lazarus had died, and so John tells us that his body stunk. Well, of course it did. It was 4 days later. Jesus became worked up by what he saw, and the stone was rolled away, and there was Lazarus, like a mummy with all of these bands of cloth. Called him forth, Lazarus, come out, and then he said to the people, unbind him and let him go. How many of you find yourself in a place of feeling bound up, maybe dealing with depression, maybe feeling like your life is bound up and not very much alive? You see, when we listen to Jesus, we listen to the one who says, unbind him and let him go, and Jesus can free us from our depression. Jesus can free us from our anxiety. Jesus can free us from the things that would bind us up. Unbind him and let him go, and his love and his ability to heal can do that for us. Recovery is possible. Maybe you're somebody who is wrestling with addiction. Maybe it's crack cocaine, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's narcotics, something else, and maybe you feel bound up and you just can't get out. Can't get out. Jesus says, unbind him, let him go. Jesus wants us to be alive and free and unbound so that we can live fully. And so we can love the people who love us. So we can be there for the people who love us. Recovery is possible. New life is possible. What does it mean to listen to Jesus? Well, John 3:16 is a lot of people's favorite passage. For God so loved the world, and then it goes on from there. For God so loved the world. For God so loved the world. Not Lutherans, not Presbyterians, not Methodists, not non-denominational, not anything. God so loved the world. Look at that. Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, atheists, Christians, Jews, humans. God so loves the world. Am I saying that we give away the store when we have conversation with people who see the faith differently than we do? Of course not. But maybe if we listen, maybe if we learn Maybe if we see that God so loves the world, we will, instead of categories, see humans. Humans, just like us. What does it mean to listen to Jesus? I think it means to know that God so loves the world. And that means all of it. It means all of those people. It means even us. What does it mean to listen to Jesus? The one who's chosen, the one called out by God for a particular mission. What does it mean to listen to Jesus? It has to do with forgiveness. Forgiveness is the best form of love. It takes a strong person to say sorry and an even stronger person to forgive. Let me say that again. It takes a strong person to say sorry and an even stronger person to forgive. Who do you know in your life today who has offended you, maybe hasn't even been aware of it, has hurt you and maybe even hasn't been aware of it at all? Can you have the strength to forgive? You know, Jesus says near the end, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. He had the strength to go to the cross, to give his life for us, and to pour it all out so that we might be unbound and so that we might have life for a God who loves the whole world. So maybe there's someone in your life that you need to forgive. But even if you can't, God forgives our best efforts, and God forgives us when we stumble. Listen to Jesus. Listen to the one who brings everything we need to be unbound, brings everything we need to live, brings everything we need to have hope. And so listen up. Listen up this week. You might hear something that will change your life. Amen.